Hi, I'm Anna Akana, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
I cannot believe you're doing music. Like, I was surprised when I first got the email, and then I was even more surprised when I was like, this doesn't sound like a new artist. It sounds like someone that's been established for a while. Like, you know how to sing, you know how to do the production. Like, I don't know, like that was pretty awesome to hear your music and to hear that you're also dabbling in music. Mm-hmm. When did this idea kind of come about for you?
Well, I've been doing music in my stand-up comedy set since I was a teenager, but I really wanted to dive into serious music because a few things. Like, I got my heart broken, and what do you do when you get your heart broken? But you write sad fucking shit, you know? And then also, I just felt like politically and spiritually and, like, as a nation, we're like, comedy's a great escape. Not knocking it. It served me when I did it. But I was like, I don't want to escape anymore. Like, I want to face issues head on and, like, sit with people and hold their hand through like the hardest, darkest stuff that they go through. Right. And for me, that was always music.
That's crazy. Like, so take me into the studio when you went in to create this album that you're working on. It's not even only an album. You're working on videos to coincide with each track on there. So when you went into the studio to kind of write down these songs for the first time, like, what was that vibe or experience for you?
They were sort of piecemeal. So I did like one at a time based on issues that were really close to me. Like I was like, hey, I really want to do a song that addresses domestic abuse because I've never talked about that before. Or like, hey, I really want to do a song that speaks to depression and suicide because that's a huge part of my life as a mental health advocate. And so as we were writing the songs, like slowly it became an album and a theme. And I was like, oh, I've been a filmmaker for 12 years. I want to make a visual album to complement this and elevate all the sonics.
Right. Now, you chose Intervention as your debut single. Like, what was it about this song that had to be, like, the introduction to your music?
It was something that I never talked about before in terms of my struggles with alcohol. And it was something that I very recently dealt with and decided to get sober. And so it felt like the most personal message I could give that was relevant at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that, your fans know, like, you've always been open to them with all your situations. So when you came into the studio to kind of create these songs, was it easier for you to open up on these songs, or was it harder now that you were actually doing music?
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, I'm such a classic oversharer. Like, my issues come with, like, exercising a boundary and trying not to, like, freak people out by sharing too much. It wasn't that hard, honestly. I think the hardest thing was writing songs where I didn't feel like I embodied them yet. So Intervention, when I wrote it, I wasn't sober. And it was sort of like a promise to myself that I was going to get sober. Right. And I, like, have songs on the album, like the Casualty is the name of the ballad. That's also the name of the album. But it's about not being a casualty just because someone doesn't love you anymore. And I didn't feel that at all when I wrote it. I was, like, incredibly depressed and suicidal, but I was like, I'll feel this someday. And so that is what sort of drove me. So even though it wasn't truthful at the time, I knew I was going to get to that place emotionally. So it was like a reminder for me.
When you were working with, like, a team of producers, or I don't know, did you have co-writers as well, or did you just write this all yourself? Like, who was the team behind all this, and what was it about each one of them that you wanted to work with them?
Yeah, so my team is Jenga Productions. It's Nietzsche Funicelli and Shayon Daniels. So Shayon makes the track, Nietzsche does Melodyne, and also helps me write melodies. They're both co-writers, and then Jim is our mixer, and they make up Jenga Productions. And they have been close friends of mine for several years. We met each other because I needed a new vocal coach because my ex stole mine. Oh, no. Yeah, and I was like, well, I can't learn the voice from you anymore. You're dating my ex-boyfriend. That's so weird. That's weird. It's super weird. So a friend recommended them to me, and we totally hit it off. And they are able to take my vision and really help me mold it and, like, bring their expertise and bring themselves to it. And it's such a beautiful collaborative process. So I love working with them.
Right. Talk to me about the process of creating these videos that came along with the track listing. Did you kind of have the videos in mind as you were writing the lyrics, or did it come after you wrote the actual album?
It came after. So once I was done with the entire album, I was like, okay, I know I want to do a visual album. So I listened to them all in order and tried to figure out exactly which ones I wanted to make first, or like visually what I saw in my head. So I came to all of my directors usually with something on the table of, like, this is what I see, this is what it means to me and what I want to communicate. And then it was sort of a collaborative process to get it to where it ended up being.
Now, what are the plans for this album now that, you have 2 singles out, and I think you had mentioned, like, something around summertime that you wanted to release this. Like, are we still expecting this to drop summertime, or have you kind of had different ideas of, like, new songs or new ways to kind of produce the tracks that you have so far?
Well, definitely I'm releasing another single in July before my headlining show at Moroccan Lounge. But in terms of, like, when the album's going to drop, that's sort of up to my team, my management team at Red Light. But we were saying about 3 to 4 singles and then drop the album, and then release the music videos every month to still drive to the album while I'm working on my second.
Now, what has been the biggest challenge in creating this debut album for you?
I mean, honestly, it's like having an audience already for something else and showing them something new, it's like I was like, do I suck at this? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe they're gonna hate it. Like, usually when you try something out, you do it in the comfort of your home, and no one can look at your stuff, and you can have permission to suck as long as you want to. But with art, it's like your art doesn't really get feedback until it's viewed by an audience. They're like an imperative part of art, and so I think facing that was the scariest thing.
So talk to me a little bit more about July 24th, which is going to be your first show ever, right?
My second show ever.
Second show. Where did you sneak one in?
I opened for Laura Morano at the Roxy.
Dude, that's such a good person to open up for.
Yeah, and the Roxy, I was like, oh, my first show. All right.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that performance. Like, what was that experience like for you, and what did you learn from her performance? Because she hasn't been touring so much either, so she's still kind of trying to figure out her live show.
Yeah. Well, I opened for her, so I didn't get to see her till afterwards, but I had a blast. I think I thought I was going to be more nervous, but because of my background in stand-up, like the moment I started performing, I was like, oh yeah, I like, this is like sort of the same thing. It's like karaoke, but everybody has to watch me, and I'm going to hog the mic. And watching Laura perform was great as well. She's so talented. She's such an amazing musician, and I don't know, it was a dream come true.
Now, did you perform any of these new tracks for that show? Did you do a lot more covers than your own music?
100% original music, yeah.
So what can fans expect at the Moroccan Lounge, July 24th?
The Moroccan Lounge, I'm doing my entire first album as well as some songs from the second album, so.
Already on the second album.
Yeah, already.
Okay, so how do you find time to do all this when, you have so many other projects that you're currently working on? So how do you find time to sit down and be creative with the music side while you're still thinking of, being creative on your other aspects in life?
I don't know. I find it really fun. I find work to be super enjoyable. It doesn't feel like work to me. It doesn't ever feel like, sometimes it feels like I have too much going on. But I don't know. I'm great at attention management. If I have a task, I do it and then in an efficient manner, and then I'm done with it. I love juggling different projects. I think that's a fun way to like procrastinate on one thing by just cycling in your rotation. I use Google Calendar. I color coordinate.
So lastly, for those that are not familiar, like, why did you choose music as another avenue in your career?
As a filmmaker, music is so instrumental. So I've spent 10 years being so focused on visual, but also really loving music. And music has always had a very special place in my heart. Like when you hear those songs and you just feel so seen and so connected. And I'm like a binge hoe. Like if I love a song, I'm going to play that song all day, every day until I like can't stand it anymore. Right. And I don't know, music to me, it was like a really beautiful place to be vulnerable. And I always thought as a stand-up comic that music was harder because I was like, oh, it's just you and your lyrics and like you're not trying to be funny and make people laugh. And I'm now at a point where I'm an adult and I want to offer something emotionally resonant to the world. So it was music.